She pushed past the crowd, gear weighing heavy on her shoulders. The sergeant major glanced up, froze, and snapped to attention, because he knew exactly whose daughter she was. The rocket screamed through the night sky, slamming into the compound as machine gun fire erupted from the ridge line. Colonel Sarah Iron Wolf Martinez had 3 minutes to evacuate 97 wounded soldiers before enemy forces overran their position. Explosions shook the earth, tracer rounds lit up the darkness, and death came from every direction. But she had done the impossible. She had saved every single life. 15 years later, Colonel Martinez's daughter pushed a heavy gear cart through the crowded equipment bay at Fort Bragg, sweat beading on her forehead as soldiers rushed past without a second glance. At 5 feet 4 inches with auburn hair escaping from a loose ponytail and green eyes that carried flecks of her mother's steel, she navigated through the chaos of equipment distribution with the determined focus of someone who had learned that hard work was the only path to respect. Her hands gripped the cart handles with white-knuckled intensity. She maneuvered around groups of soldiers with practiced efficiency, and she maintained the kind of invisible presence that made airborne infantry and special forces operators treat her like part of the background equipment. But Staff Sergeant Williams, organizing equipment loads nearby, had noticed something unusual about her movement patterns. The way she unconsciously positioned herself with tactical awareness, always maintaining sight lines to exits and approaches. Her spatial awareness during the controlled chaos of equipment distribution seemed almost military, despite her obvious civilian contractor status. The soldiers knew her only as part of the base's support infrastructure. Gear girl when they needed equipment moved, the contractor when discussing logistics among themselves, or simply ignored entirely when real paratroopers were discussing jump operations and combat training. None of these elite airborne soldiers, rangers, and special forces operators had any reason to investigate the background of someone who clearly belonged to civilian support services and posed no operational significance to their military training and combat preparation. Private First Class Emma Ghost Martinez hauled gear with the mechanical determination of someone trying to prove herself through sheer effort and dedication. She arrived before dawn to prepare equipment for training exercises, systematically organized gear according to unit requirements and operational priorities, positioned herself wherever the workload demanded without complaint or recognition, and maintained the kind of tireless work ethic that characterized people fighting for acceptance in environments where they felt like outsiders. Her behavior was completely appropriate for civilian contractor work. Her presence was utterly unremarkable, and her determined focus on tasks made even NCOs forget she existed after giving her assignment instructions. Sergeant Rodriguez, coordinating parachute equipment for upcoming jump operations, had observed something peculiar about the contractor's familiarity with military gear and procedures. She didn't just move equipment randomly. She organized it according to tactical priorities and operational requirements that suggested understanding of airborne operations and combat equipment beyond normal civilian contractor knowledge. Master Sergeant Johnson, supervising equipment distribution for Special Forces training, had caught something odd during his coordination activities. The gear contractor wasn't just distributing equipment. She was asking detailed questions about operational requirements, equipment specifications, and mission parameters that suggested familiarity with special operations procedures and tactical equipment that exceeded most soldiers' knowledge. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that extraordinary legacies often carry forward through the most unexpected paths. Before we reveal this incredible story of hidden heritage and inherited honor, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that the blood of heroes flows through generations in ways we rarely recognize, hit that subscribe button to support our mission. We're honored to share these extraordinary stories of concealed courage and family legacy with you. The 82nd Airborne Division's major equipment distribution for upcoming training exercises was scheduled for 0800 hours, bringing together multiple infantry units, special forces teams, and support elements for complex gear coordination that would support multi-day operations designed to test every aspect of unit logistics, equipment management, and operational readiness that prepared soldiers for deployment to active combat zones worldwide. Emma Martinez drew her usual assignment for the equipment distribution, heavy gear transportation, equipment organization, and logistics support that kept training units properly equipped throughout complex multi-day exercises. Her role was exactly what it had always been: ensure seamless equipment support for combat units, while maintaining efficient distribution operations from the equipment bay. Among the day's most demanding requirements was gear preparation for Operation Steel Thunder, a complex airborne insertion exercise where Alpha Company would conduct parachute operations into challenging terrain, while Bravo Company established ground support operations and Charlie Company maintained rapid deployment capability. The exercise required precise equipment coordination and flawless logistics support for multiple specialized units. As the distribution commenced at dawn, multiple airborne units moved through the equipment bay to collect specialized gear, while Emma established her transportation coordination between equipment storage areas and unit preparation zones. Her responsibilities included moving heavy equipment loads, organizing gear according to unit specifications, and maintaining distribution efficiency that allowed combat units to focus on operational preparation. First Lieutenant Marcus Steele Davis supervised Alpha Company's equipment collection as his paratroopers gathered specialized gear for airborne insertion operations: parachutes, combat equipment, communication systems, and specialized weapons that required precise organization and accountability. His unit included 36 elite airborne infantry soldiers with extensive jump experience and advanced tactical training. Staff Sergeant Jennifer Hawk Morrison coordinated Bravo Company's ground support equipment, organizing heavy weapons systems, communication equipment, and logistics gear that would support airborne operations and provide tactical coordination between insertion teams and ground support elements. Sergeant Major Robert Thunder Jackson oversaw overall equipment distribution operations, monitoring multiple unit requirements while maintaining accountability for specialized equipment and ensuring that training exercises received proper logistics support and equipment coordination. The morning distribution proceeded according to plan, with units collecting equipment and conducting preparation activities while Emma maintained her transportation coordination between storage areas and unit preparation zones, moving heavy gear loads and organizing equipment according to operational requirements. But at 1,445 hours, as Emma was pushing a particularly heavy cart loaded with communication equipment and specialized gear through the crowded equipment bay, she encountered something that would fundamentally change how everyone understood her background and connection to military service. Sergeant Major Jackson was conducting final equipment accountability when he looked up from his inventory sheets and saw Emma struggling with the heavy cart, sweat running down her face as she maneuvered the equipment through crowds of soldiers preparing for training operations. His casual glance became focused attention as he noticed something about her facial features and physical characteristics that triggered recognition patterns from his extensive military experience and knowledge of military families and legacy service members. Jackson stopped his inventory activities entirely, his expression shifting from routine equipment supervision to something far more complex. Recognition layered with respect, amazement mixed with what appeared to be profound reverence for military heritage and family legacy. He stared at Emma with increasing intensity, as if he was seeing something that connected to his deepest understanding of military service and sacrifice, or witnessing someone whose presence represented connections to military history and heroic service that transcended normal equipment distribution activities. The equipment bay remained busy, with normal training preparation, soldiers organizing gear, NCOs coordinating equipment distribution, and the controlled chaos that characterized major training exercise preparation. But Jackson's attention had become completely focused on the contractor struggling with heavy equipment loads. Then, without warning or explanation, Sergeant Major Jackson did something that shocked everyone in the equipment bay and fundamentally changed Emma's understanding of her place in the military community. He dropped his inventory clipboard, came to rigid military attention, and delivered the most crisp, formal salute that anyone in the equipment bay had ever witnessed, directed specifically toward the civilian contractor pushing a gear cart through the crowded facility. "Ma'am," Jackson said, his voice carrying clearly through the equipment bay with unmistakable respect and recognition that suggested knowledge far beyond normal contractor-NCO interactions. The equipment bay fell into stunned silence. Every soldier, NCO, and officer within sight stopped their equipment preparation activities and turned to witness what had captured their senior enlisted leader's attention with such obvious military protocol and formal recognition. Emma looked up from her gear card, and for the first time since her assignment to contractor duties, her determined focus on work shifted to confusion and growing awareness that something significant was happening that she didn't understand. "Sergeant Major," she replied uncertainly, clearly bewildered by receiving formal military recognition while performing civilian contractor responsibilities. Jackson maintained his position of attention and salute while addressing Emma with the kind of respect typically reserved for the most distinguished military personnel and family members. "Ma'am, it's an honor to see you here at Fort Bragg. Your mother's service and sacrifice have never been forgotten by the soldiers who served under her command." The statement hit the equipment bay like an artillery strike. The civilian contractor they had been watching struggle with heavy equipment was connected to military service and family legacy that commanded respect from their most senior enlisted leader. Lieutenant Davis, who had been coordinating his unit's equipment collection, stepped forward with obvious confusion and growing curiosity. "Sergeant Major Jackson, could you provide context about this contractor's connection to military service?" Jackson's response revealed information that would fundamentally change how everyone in the equipment bay understood Emma's background and her connection to the military community they all served. "Lieutenant Davis," Jackson said, his voice carrying the authority and respect that characterized someone who had served with legendary military leaders. "You've been working alongside the daughter of Colonel Sarah Martinez, one of the most decorated combat leaders in Army history." The revelation struck the equipment bay with devastating force. The contractor who had been struggling with heavy equipment loads while being ignored by combat soldiers was actually the daughter of a military legend whose service and sacrifice had earned recognition throughout the Army. Staff Sergeant Morrison, who had been coordinating equipment distribution, approached with obvious respect and amazement. "Sergeant Major, could you provide context about Colonel Martinez's service and why her daughter's presence here deserves such recognition?" Jackson's answer provided insight into military service and combat leadership that represented the highest levels of courage and sacrifice in Army history. Colonel Sarah "Iron Wolf" Martinez commanded the 173rd Airborne Brigade during Operation Desert Fury, a classified combat mission where her leadership and tactical decisions under impossible conditions saved 397 American soldiers from annihilation while she gave her life to ensure their evacuation. The weight of Jackson's words settled over the equipment bay like incoming artillery fire. Desert Fury was legendary among airborne soldiers, a mission so classified and heroic that most details remained buried in Pentagon files, known only to the soldiers who had survived it and the families who had paid its ultimate cost. During that operation, Jackson continued, Colonel Martinez held defensive positions against overwhelming enemy forces for 6 hours while coordinating evacuation of wounded soldiers. Her tactical leadership and personal sacrifice allowed every soldier under her command to return home to their families. Lieutenant Davis, who had been treating Emma as invisible contractor support, was beginning to understand the depth of military heritage and family sacrifice that had been hidden behind equipment distribution duties. "Sergeant Major," Davis said with growing respect, "Colonel Martinez's daughter has been working equipment distribution here for months while we've treated her like civilian support staff. We had no idea about her family's service and sacrifice." Emma, who had been struggling with understanding the recognition and respect being directed toward her, found her voice to respond to the discussion about her mother's military service. "Sergeant Major, my mother never talked much about her military service. She just said she did her job and that other people made the real sacrifices. I didn't know that her service was considered special." Jackson's response revealed the profound impact that Colonel Martinez's leadership and sacrifice had made on the soldiers who served under her command and the military community that remembered her heroism. "Ma'am, your mother's job involved making tactical decisions under enemy fire that saved hundreds of American lives while she gave her own life to ensure mission success. Her leadership and sacrifice represent the highest ideals of military service and family dedication." Master Sergeant Johnson, who had been supervising equipment coordination, approached Emma with obvious respect and recognition of the military legacy she represented. "Ma'am, now I understand why your familiarity with military equipment and procedures seems so natural. You grew up in a military family that understood service and sacrifice at the deepest levels." Emma's response revealed the complexity of growing up as the daughter of a military hero while trying to find her own path and identity separate from her mother's legendary service. "Master Sergeant, I've always felt like I needed to prove myself on my own merit rather than relying on my mother's reputation. I wanted to earn respect through my own work and dedication." Staff Sergeant Morrison, who had observed Emma's tireless work ethic and dedication to supporting military training operations, was beginning to understand the source of her commitment to serving soldiers and supporting military operations. "Ma'am, your work ethic and dedication to supporting our training operations makes complete sense now. You've been carrying forward your mother's commitment to serving soldiers and ensuring mission success." Over the following weeks, Emma transitioned from her contractor role to recognition as a valued member of the Fort Bragg military community, whose family heritage and personal dedication represented the continuity of military service and sacrifice across generations. "What Emma represents," Sergeant Major Jackson explained to base leadership, "is the continuation of military values and service commitment that transcends individual careers and extends through family generations. Her dedication to supporting soldiers honors her mother's legacy while establishing her own contribution to military mission success." Emma worked with unit coordinators and logistics specialists to develop enhanced equipment distribution procedures that reflected her understanding of operational requirements and her commitment to ensuring that soldiers received the best possible support for training and deployment preparation. Growing up in a military family, Emma explained to the soldiers who now understood her background and heritage, "Taught me that supporting soldiers and ensuring mission success isn't just a job. It's a way of honoring the sacrifice that military families make to protect our country." Her equipment coordination programs emphasized efficiency, accountability, and soldier welfare considerations that reflected military values and operational understanding that came from growing up in a family dedicated to military service and sacrifice. Lieutenant Davis, whose unit had been supported by Emma's equipment coordination efforts, became one of her most dedicated advocates for recognizing military family contributions to base operations and soldier welfare. Emma's approach to equipment support has enhanced our training preparation and operational readiness, Davis said during unit briefings. Her understanding of soldier needs and operational requirements reflects military family values and dedication to mission success. The equipment coordination improvements that Emma developed were eventually adopted throughout Fort Bragg's training operations, establishing new standards for logistics support that honored military heritage while improving soldier welfare and operational effectiveness. Her methods influenced military logistics operations and enhanced support for training exercises and deployment preparation. But perhaps Emma's greatest contribution was demonstrating that military service and family heritage create lasting commitments to supporting soldiers and ensuring mission success that continue across generations through different forms of service and dedication. The story of Emma "Ghost" Martinez became inspirational throughout Fort Bragg, shared with new personnel as an example of how military heritage and family values continue through different paths of service and dedication to soldier welfare. Her example reminded military personnel that the most valuable support often comes from people whose family connections to military service create deep understanding of soldier needs and operational requirements. "The most important lesson you can learn here," Jackson would tell new soldiers, "is that military families serve in many different ways. The person supporting your training operations might be someone whose family heritage represents the highest levels of military sacrifice and dedication." The contractor assignment had provided Emma with the opportunity to serve the military community while establishing her own identity and contributions separate from her mother's legendary service. Her transition to recognized community member demonstrated that military heritage creates lasting commitments to soldier welfare and mission success. Years later, when Emma transitioned to official military service as a commissioned officer specializing in logistics and soldier welfare, her legacy lived on in the enhanced support programs she developed and in the understanding that military families serve across generations through different paths, but with consistent dedication to soldier welfare and mission success. Her story reminded everyone that in military communities, as in all service organizations, the most valuable contributions often come from people whose family heritage creates deep understanding of sacrifice and service, because the most exceptional support often comes from those who carry forward military values through inherited commitment to soldier welfare and mission success. The moment when Sergeant Major Jackson had snapped to attention and saluted had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that military heritage often appears in unexpected forms, and that the people working hardest to support soldiers may be the ones carrying forward family legacies of service and sacrifice. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever discovered that someone you knew in a support role actually carried the heritage of military service and family sacrifice that motivated their dedication to serving others? Have you encountered people whose work ethic and commitment reflected family legacies of service that you hadn't recognized? Tell us in the comments about the moments when you realized you'd been working alongside someone whose family heritage exceeded your understanding. And if you believe that military values and service commitment continue across generations through different forms of dedication, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. No one calls her just the contractor anymore, not after they learned whose daughter she was.